person who's like has sex with a lot of people, wears no clothing?
Someone who would sell their body for sex or have an obscene amount of sexual partners, like 20 in every hour. That's what I would consider a little much.
A slut is a label society likes to use to degrade more sexually liberal people.
In my opinion, a slut is someone who has sex with a lot of people and doesn't care who they are.
What is a slut? Well, from what I remember, when that term was used amongst my peers or me, which would have been when I was between the ages of maybe 14 and 21 to 22, a slut would have referred to someone who thought lightly of just having sex with whoever and wasn't really in a relationship with the person, just kind of having sex for sex sake. Or somebody who was moving in on someone else's significant other without any regard for the relationship or that other person. That's just one of those words that really, I'm not sure if it has a lot of weight in the meaning of the word. Anyway.
A slut is someone that has sex with like a lot of people in like a short period of time, I guess.
I feel like sometimes people's, like, just their anatomy, the way they look, like, will get people to call them a slut. I could be wearing exactly the same thing as somebody else and no one will say anything to me. And then, like, if someone has, like, a big chest, that, like, big chest must be, like, bad person or something. Or, like, it's just, like, they're threatened. Just, like, there's something weird, like, I don't know what it is, but they, you know, sometimes they will get labeled as, like, the more, like, sexual labels will get put on them. Because if their body, like, fits the image of what's beautiful more than theirs, or, like, maybe doesn't exactly, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I heard that they say that, like, the perfect, like, woman fits in, like, the numerical, like, measurements of, like, 24, 36, 24, or something like that, or something like that. Yeah, it's the, you know, like, the measurements around, like, shoulders, or, like, this and this part, and the meow, like.
A slut is a term used for someone who is considered to be sexually promiscuous by some person, but the problem with the term is that it's such a subjective idea of what sexually promiscuous is, and it has this negative connotation of you know, because you're a slut, because you have sex with these people, you're a fundamentally bad person, when that isn't the case. You could fuck probably 50 different guys or 50 different girls and you would still be the exact same person. Like, that doesn't change who you are, doesn't make you a worse person, doesn't make you a better person. Your sex life shouldn't be something that can then cause a label to be placed on you.
It has to do with, you know, the fact that people are just scared of what's different from them. And, you know, people get defensive and they start judging and critiquing people who are different from them, or and it makes them feel good about themselves because maybe they don't fit the perfect norms. And, you know, I just feel like judgment is like a huge problem in all of this. So I remember, like, one time, like, this one girl found out that I had premarital sex.
Wow!
I know, shocker. But she
What the hell is that?
It's a premarital sex, please.
God.
Who is it? Who's one?
So this girl found out that I had premarital sex, and apparently, not to my face, but to my good friend, started legitimately crying because I had premarital sex, and because it diminished her meaning of marriage. Her personal meaning of marriage, my personal life, that she had no reason or right to know about or even comment about, is diminishing her her meaning of marriage. And of course, when I found out, like, I was extremely offended because I felt like, you know, this girl, you know, is judging me for my actions, considering me a slut, being a terrible detriment to society and marriage and everything evil in the world. Like, that's what I was doing.
I never had anybody call me a slut to my face. I was always a little more shy and more self-conscious of my body, so I was always a little more conservative. You know, I never thought that I had the look to be a slut, to tell you the truth. So I don't believe I ever dressed provocatively that I thought I was.
And have you ever been called a slut?
No. Yeah.
Why did they call you a slut?
I dated a lot of people in a short period of time, like when I was in freshman or sophomore. But
Good job.
No, I've actually encountered the opposite sometimes. I think there becomes the stigma of, if you're a virgin, why are you a virgin? If you've had sex with all these people, why have you had sex with all these people? I don't have to deal with that, with the latter, as often because of my status as a male. If I were to have fucked a lot of women, then I would be seen as some kind of hero or some kind of great, you know, sex god. So I think with guys it actually becomes the opposite in a sense. If you haven't fucked girls, if you haven't fucked a bunch of people, then you're actually less.
I feel like I've gotten negative attention for the way I've dressed before, but I don't think anyone's ever called me a slut, seriously. But, I mean, if this, like, answers your question, but, like, I feel like, you know, sometimes the way I dress, like, people will treat me differently. It's kind of weird, like, I don't know. If I'm wearing tighter clothes, like, people just seem, like, really friendly that day for some reason. I'm like, okay, you know.
Yes, I get called a slut a lot.
Okay.
Not in seriousness. That was a joke.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Why?
I call people sluts before all the time.
Why do you call them sluts?
Because, in my opinion, when you do, in my mind, a slutty thing to do is like have sex in school and stuff like that. And so when people did that, I called them sluts.
I thought of of them them as as a a slut. slut. I did. That's before I understood what it means to call someone a slut.
Sure, yeah. Yes.
Like, why did you call them a slut?
Well, probably because they had boyfriends, you know, but you know, that could have also referred to a little bit of being a bit jealous, you know, of some of my friends who were, you know, better looking or something, and had boyfriends and went out. I just kind of reminds me of a friend that I had when I was probably in 4th grade up to about 9th grade, and you know, she was one who, by the time she was in 9th grade, she already was like dating somebody who was like 21 years old. So, you know, and of course they were probably having sex. So, yeah, maybe I thought of her a little bit as a slut.
Probably when I was younger. Not that I can recall. I think a lot of when it's used nowadays stems from a kind of naivety and a kind of latching on to what society says. I think now that I'm older and I've matured, I've kind of come to realize how kind of ridiculous the term is, and how it's, you know, this kind of, you know, unnecessary term that we've kind of latched onto as this way to empower ourselves and to put others down.
I think it should not just apply to women. I mean, men can sleep with an obscene amount of women, and I find it extremely wrong that women are criticized and men are applauded for that behavior.
I don't think anybody should be labeled with that word.
Oh yeah.
It's more of a circle.
Man could be a slut if he's bouncing around from partner to partner, then yeah, it's a slut. With guys, when they have sex with X amount of girls or guys, it's like, oh yeah, congratulations. Like it's like a high five on it. But with girls, when they have sex with a lot of guys, it's like, oh, ill, you spread your legs for anyone and everyone, and you don't care. So I think, yeah, guys can be sluts just as much as a girl can.
Yeah, if anyone could be a slut, sure.
Right. Do you think that men typically are rewarded for having a lot of sex while women are typically criticized for it?
Definitely. Society's double standards.
Alright.
I think if you're going to use the term slut, it shouldn't become gender biased. So if you're going to judge a woman based on how many sexual partners she's had, but I think the short answer is no, because I don't believe it should be a term used for women, so it shouldn't be a term used for men. It's like if you take the idea of pimps, for instance, we have male pimps and we have male, sugar daddies, but like you never, especially in like media depictions of this, you never see the roles reversed. It's always a man in this role of power and the woman in role of commodity and role of, object to be, used for this man's pleasure. And like with the sugar daddy, it's it's the man's job to to support this woman, and because of that, he gets to fuck her whenever she wants. He gets to treat her like an object. And so, I think a lot of what this comes down to is this idea of the patriarchy and this idea that one sex should be, privileged over the other, and that, it's such a binary when there's such this kind of fluidity that happens with male and female roles. In actuality, that all of these things become dangerous. The idea of a slut, the idea of a stud, the idea of a pimp, the idea of a sugar daddy. Even if you were to reverse it and have a woman as the male figure and the man as the woman figure or whatever, even that becomes dangerous, because then, it's just a matriarchy, and that's just as, perilous and negative as what a patriarchy would be. So
I think that traditions haven't changed that much since the Roman Empire, because for example the Roman Empire, because in that society women were very much a minority group, and a lot of people considered women to still be a minority group in the US, and they would have to be legally traded among men. First it would be the father's property, and then she would be traded off to a male to marry, or if the father died, she would be the property of her brother. And and that kind of mentality is still kind of around, even though it's not by law. It's still
Yeah, we still have that same instinct almost.
12 years a slave, and I've had there's this major theme of black women slaves, and one of the only ways that they could survive and not be beaten as a slave is to become the the master's whore, mistress, and and just how like their bodies were used. It was like between a rock and a hard place. Like, you know, if they did it, they were, you know, emotionally abused. The wives hated. There was this like really horrific scene where the wife of the master, like, you know, hit or knocked over and hit the slave mistress in the face. But, you know, she's either hated and called a whore and judged, or she is killed for refusing to be a whore. There's really no good place in the fact that that was so prominent in our culture for so long is disgusting, and the whole idea of whores and sluts have been around for centuries.
Like, and then, you know, like going off what B said about how, like, you know, the only way that like a woman that was like actually a slave could like possibly find a little peace, like B said, like, and like maybe not be like as abused or something by her slave master, was to be like to fall into like what kind of like sexual persona he wanted her to have. And I feel like that's not that different from today. It's like if a woman doesn't want to be like stigmatized or criticized or feel like awkward in high school, they like do what the men around them like expect, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not, it doesn't seem as like physically like materially violent. I mean, it can get that way, but it's just in like the way we talk to each other, like in just, you know, being derogatory with our language and just saying like, oh yeah, well she's this way because I don't like that and this and that, you know what I mean? Like, then don't date her. I don't know. I mean, it's still like bowing to the, just, you know, it's just a woman like bowing to like the patriarchy, just like trying to decide like whatever her slave master like wants her to do. It's you know what I mean? It's to like, it seems like it'll get you less criticism if you are not a slut, or if you like, you know, have sex with someone when they want you to or something.
You're like dancing a fine line.
Yeah, it
like
just,
you're obeying someone else. It just like reminds me in high school of how I would feel ugly and people would have wrong impressions of me and I would just wear whatever and I didn't care. And I remember thinking like, I have to wear makeup, I have to put on lip gloss, I have to wear dresses for people to notice me, for people to like me, because I won't be ugly. So it's like, you know, you take that step of looking nice, and people want you to be pretty, they want you to be beautiful, they want you to be pleasing to the eye. But if you take that too far, you know.
Yeah, and then like, what's the point? I mean, what's the point of like going too far? It's like such a thin line between them. Like, I mean, I don't know. Basically, people will say anything. It's like, if you do anything, something has to be criticized, no matter what.
It's literally impossible to fit the image that I feel that you're trying to get if it's not yourself. It's like impossible to fit. Like, it's impossible to make yourself look like or like dress the part of like, I don't know, some other like set of like ideals or some other beauty standards.
Yeah, it's not like every single person has the same
like there's no such thing as getting there, so you might as well drop out of the race is what I think.
Or like, you know, men are, they always like, you know, a woman like, oh wow, you really look nice today. You know, wow, like, and men, I've heard
like what I want to see today.
Men, I've heard men say like, I love it when women don't wear any makeup, it's so much more attractive. I'm like, that is a flat out lie. Yeah. Because when I didn't wear any makeup, I didn't see any men hitting on me.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if I weren't wearing like what I'm wearing right now. I was telling my mother about this like guy that I thought was like oh, he's so cute, I really want to talk to him, but I'm nervous or whatever. I'm like, but you know, I think he's seeing this pretty girl, and she goes like, she's like, we'll go to the mall, I'll get you a big push-up bra, I'll be fine. I'm like,
oh, that's the way to solve everything.
She said that. And then,
no, that's terrible.
And then I never talked to any of them again.
Like, cross-culturally, like, the fact that, like, so much time is, like there's so much anxiety in the world due to, like, this really abstract, completely random, not set in stone, concrete anything that no one truly understands, but it's, like, these notions of beauty that are just really, like, I don't know, like, if I were if I were the aristocracy in like 1740s, like in Novgorod in Russia, like I would like be really, really masculine and awesome if like my wife like were, you know, like Jabba the Hutt on like an ottoman, and then I'd just be like, what? And like I'm sure there was just like lots of men like, oh, your woman has no meat on her bones, like discard into the streets, and like and so like what in America in 2013 in like Cleveland, Ohio, it's like, oh, they got no boobs, like into the streets with you. I'm gonna focus on that, like. But it's just objectifying, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just, it seems to me like the like level of like serious angst that like surrounds like all of these like, I don't know, all these ways that people treat each other, like the fact that there can't be consensus on it, and like no one really knows what they're even talking about, because like we're having this conversation right now, and like it takes like you know, it takes like fleshing out, like, because it's like everyone kind of looking at each other like, I guess there is really no agreement. What does slut really mean? Like I know it's like said every day like millions and millions of times, and people have these vague notions, but really that's all it is. Like that's all it is, and it has like a lot of impact for like your feelings like all the time. Like it can't be like minimized, because it is like seriously in the culture, and it seriously affects people's days, people's moods, people's like self-esteem, people's attitudes, like how people treat each other. But you know, when you kind of pull back the curtain, it's like nothing was there ever in the first place.
That it's very common for people to go to painful lengths to fit a standard that they don't even understand.
Yeah.
You know? And I find it's a lot less painful to liberate yourself from the standard that you don't even understand, and to just like do what feels comfortable in your own body, and you know, be with people that make you feel comfortable in your own skin. Yeah.
And communicate in your community
Yeah.
about what you think too.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be in an offensive way, like.
Yeah.
But to have clarity and try to, you know, because chances are a lot of other people around you might be thinking similar things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So.
communicate with others and communicate with your sexual partners. And it's always good to be clear. And
Slut is a person of any gender who has the courage to lead life according to the radical proposition that sex is nice and pleasure is good for you, said some authors of a book called The Ethical Slut. The Ethical Slut is like very pro having a lot of sex. I think that having a lot of sex is awesome. It's called the Ethical Slut. But I mean, but what I like about that quote is that it encourages like creating room for sexual possibilities.
Sexual.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, anything. You can not have any sex. You can just whatever you like to do at whatever frequency you like to do it with whoever you want to do it with. You know what I mean? So, just, you know, personalize what makes you feel happy. That's the thing.